A welcome on timeout with Gerald Bentley. We're here on the Fired Up Sports Network. Going to kick off the NFL season. So I thought, who better to talk to than the man who embodies Cleveland sports, Mark Munch Bishop. Him and I worked together, it seems like years ago. It was so long ago.
How long ago, Gerald?
Glad you asked. It was so long ago. Bill Belichick was the head coach of the original Cleveland Browns.
And you know what's funny?
Not
because
long ago.
I know it's not when I first started. That goes back to 1979. But yeah, Belichick was the head coach when we hooked up.
Yeah. That was a long time ago, back on 1420 WHK, the voice of the sports fan in Cleveland. But now we're here on the Fire.
Doing Cleveland State basketball games now.
Yeah, Cleveland State basketball, yeah.
Of course, the former coach who really brought them back to prominence, Dennis Gates, is not far from you in Columbia.
No, he is right down the road at MU in Missouri. And did a great job. I was calling them.
Job. Yeah, by the way, when you see Dennis and I, he's a dear friend still, but he took 2 starters with him too when he went to Missouri.
Yeah, I was calling them the Missouri State Vikings last year.
Oh, I like that.
But Cleveland's my alma mater. I have my summa cum laude award back there next to the wrestling belts.
Wow,
from Cleveland State. They had a pretty good year too.
Yeah, they really did get. You know what? Here's what's interesting. Is that for a school like that, and Gary Waters, when he was there, another great basketball name, said to me, Munch, what do I have to do to get people's attention? I said, win the league, which is the Horizon League. Mm-hmm. I said, go to the NCAA and win a game. Well, he did all that, and then he started getting people's attention, and then bang, Gary just decided it was, it gets to be grueling on him. So he retired, pulled the plug. Dennis Gates came in, and he continued the tradition. Let's hope the new coach can do it too, Daniel Robinson. But looks like he's up to the challenge. But, Gerald, it's interesting. A program like Cleveland State, I know we're going to talk football.
Yeah.
Very important to get some local kids that could play because that really picks up the hype and the excitement. But there is a nice buzz going around town for the Vikings.
Yeah, no, it's a terrific school, and people that aren't from Cleveland don't realize it. I'm minutes away from KU where we're recording this. I'm hours away from MU. Cleveland State isn't much smaller than either of those schools. It's crazy. You don't think of it.
But you mentioned KU. You're not going to give the Wildcats any props here, bro?
KU's a little bit further away. K-State's a little bit further away. They're 2.5 hours. But no, K-State's going to be good. I think they'll win the Big 12. Yeah. Which would be nice since Texas is bailing.
Yeah, you know what? College football, I know it got underway last weekend, but this is it. You know what I'm really looking forward to is that I want to see in a big, big way how Primetime takes his Buffaloes and plays TCU to start things off. And by the way, their offensive coordinator, Sean Lewis, was head coach at Kent State, came up with the moniker Flash Fast. He wants to run an offensive play. You ready for this? Every 7 seconds. So the play is done. He wants the ball snapped within 7 seconds. It'll be interesting to see, especially with all the transfers, kids coming out, kids coming back in.
Well, and the quarterback is Deion Sanders' son.
Yes, it is.
So should be interesting.
I apologize. Our attack dog is barking at somebody coming down the
it's a perfect segue to a little Browns talk because you got the dogs there. And I wanted to get in touch with you, not just to talk about Cleveland days, but the Browns were just here in Kansas City taking on the Chiefs in a little preseason football, and the first quarter, aided by a pick six, it was the defense looked like they were playing in the hot knife through butter formation. The Browns ran up a big lead. What did you take of that in Cleveland? Is that positive for the Browns going in, or
everybody was
a little bit of a negative for the Chiefs?
Was getting ready to sacrifice animals, outside the stadium and say prayers, this and that. I don't believe the Chiefs had a starter on the field defensively, did they?
Not many.
Yeah,
and of course, the big starter for the Chiefs is still sitting at home, Chris Jones.
Yes, Chris Jones, and he is a difference maker, and you got to have difference makers when you play. Gerald, I'll tell you something, and I'm going to be blunt with you, a fan for 65 plus years, okay? I know I'm only 40, so how could that happen? But the bottom line is this, is that, anything the team could do, they could do no wrong. And I want to point out, under the Jimmy Haslam tenure, they've had one winning season with a quarterback that they drove out of town. Okay, so let's just get that there. So anything that happens, people talking about the big lead. By the way, they squandered that lead and lost the football game. Their kicker shortly afterwards lost their job, and all preseason long, it's interesting that no one else was brought in to even push the young man or give him some pointers, because fourth round draft choice down the train.
Yeah.
Gosh, isn't it? To me, baseball is still the national pastime, hands down in a big, big way. I know that's hard to tell Royals fans that right now. And right now, the way the Guardians have been playing lately, it's hard to tell Cleveland fans that too. But overall, and I have had communications with the commissioner of the National Football League, letting them know that, hey, I'm just one guy. And what do I represent? What do I care? But right now, it's third on my list when it comes to football, behind college and high school. The NFL. Nefarious scoundrels running rampant in the league. Heck, the Browns have a quarterback that they just put rules in because of him that he would not be in the league, and these rules been implemented before it came down. I believe that one of our comrades with a microphone, Ben Maller on Fox Sports, that's okay if I mention that, right? Is that he came out overnight and said, you know what, it's interesting because here are Browns fans all over Big Ben Roethlisberger for his indiscretions with females, one in particular. But the bottom line is they've got a quarterback here in Cleveland who had his own petting zoo. Okay. And Gerald, one thing I will say is there has been no apologies, no contrite demeanor from Deshaun Watson, as I call him. And I'm going to ask you this too. To me, my name is everything. Is that, of course, he paid off, I believe, 24 of the world. Think about that. 24, okay? And I think there were 66 total appointments with massage therapists. I immediately, after this came down, asked NFL players, current and former, people that played 10 years, how many massage therapists did you have? I think the most one person had was 3. Okay, because you get somebody good, you stick with them. But
and usually it's somebody the team's recommended.
Thank you, sir. But you know what? Something else to hit you with is that if this is me, I am clearing my name, okay? I'm not paying people off to be silent. It's like, okay, I didn't do it. If I didn't do it, let's go. Let's tangle that way. But apparently he didn't need to. Overall, is it still there are still gentlemen in the game that makes it worth watching. Occasionally, you have one as your quarterback in Kansas City, and there are quite a few others. Some things, though, leave me scratching my head. It actually goes back to the Ray Lewis time. Here is a man involved in a double murder that he was asked on more than one occasion by media people, and he always would say, I'll pray for you. I can't believe you're asking me that. Come on, Ray, fess up, okay? Get it done. What do they do in Baltimore? They build a statue to the man. When Ray Rice had his indiscretions on video. Gerald, I don't know, maybe I'm missing the boat on this, brother, but when he had his indiscretion, you had women going to football games wearing Rice jerseys. I see them in Cleveland wearing Watson jersey. It's probably just me, okay? I'm probably the wacko here, but I don't get it, brother. I don't get it.
You know what? I think to a degree, you've gotten to the point where winning and money rule out over everything. The thing that can trip that, though, if you have issues, if there are character issues, if there's stories in the background, fan being short for fanatics, they'll overlook lots of things if you're winning. If you're losing, the turn will come pretty quick. And I think the Browns, the clock is on because last year, Deshaun Watson was not good. I mean, he just measurably wasn't good. And that happens when you're out of football for a couple of years. It's hard to come back. I remember a friend of ours from years past. I remember talking to Gary Danielson, former Browns quarterback, former Detroit Lions quarterback. He used to own a restaurant at Great Northern Shopping Mall. And I was talking with him about how hard it is to come in and play as a backup quarterback because when he came back, he almost immediately got hurt. And he told me how you can't replicate the speed of the defense and your body just isn't used to the hits. So you hadn't been hit for a couple of years as a backup quarterback who didn't play. Now you go in there and the other team's realizing, whoa, hang on, we're down to QB2. This guy's out. We win. And it was hammer time on him. And he was gone within a week. And that year, the Browns ended up running out Gary Danielson, Mike Pagel, the brother, of course, of Carl Pongo Pagel, and got Don Strock out of retirement off the golf course
with a suntan.
playoffs.
The story is he actually had a cocktail in his hand at the country club when the phone rang. There's a wink.
I think he may have went on the field with a cocktail a few times.
No, well, brother, no, he didn't play that way. But I'll tell you this: here he shows up in Cleveland in the dead of winter. We've got snowstorms, and he's suntanned on the sideline. Yep. That was a cool thing. I'm so glad you mentioned that. Other former quarterbacks have said to me that at one time, and don't get me wrong, I'm not like, oh, well, I don't like this kid. No, to me, when all these allegations first came down with Deshaun Watson, I was horrified. Here was a kid who I felt got it. On his wristbands in college, he wore the addresses of the projects he grew up in. He talked humble on down the line. Well, if you go to SI.com, USA Today, or the New York Times, I'd say three of those all
don't have the statue up of him, but the immortal Dwayne Rudd, linebacker for the Cleveland Browns. They were up
against the Chiefs. Against the Chiefs,
37-36 with less than 30 seconds to go. And getting down, the Chiefs are on their last play. Dwayne Rudd almost had Trent Green in the grasp. He was able to fling a lateral back to an offensive lineman who ran it up to the 25 as time expired. But the Browns managed to grab defeat from the jaws of victory when Dwayne Rudd ripped off his helmet, spiked it to the ground, and game can't end on a defensive penalty. Morton Anderson, one of the all-time great place kickers, walked out and nailed an extra point. Game over.
You know, it's interesting because my son, who is 29 now, he'll be 30 in just a couple of weeks. We were at that game, so he was 9 years old. And as soon as that last play transpired, I grabbed him. I go, we'll stay in the aisle, but let's get a couple steps on all the people here so we can get out quicker. And as we stood in the aisle, stood in this leaf, he looked at me and goes, Dad, it's not over, is it? I said, no, it's not. I went in the stands just as a fan that game. And once again, what did I say earlier? When the clock hit 0-0-0, then you know it's over. Not until then.
Well, and it was a different era then too, because I mean, you don't really realize this, but back in 2002, everybody didn't have one of these things, and they weren't blasting up to the second stats and play-by-play. I mean, you had your radio. Yeah, you could listen to Jim Donovan doing the radio call, but that was it. And that just hit some news feeds yesterday as all-time disasters of opening day. Dwayne Rudd in the NFL opening day Hall of Fame. And he wasn't a bad player. That was just a memorable.
Leave it to the Browns.
Play.
Hey, what about the Chiefs? I mean, you're in KC, starting the season against the Lions. Don't the Lions seem to be the flavor du jour this year around? Dan Campbell has really turned them around. Of course, they suffered under another coach from the Belichick tree that just couldn't make that his own. And actually, I feel this is not personal because the young fellows from our neck of the woods here in Northeast Ohio, I don't think McDaniels is going to make it as head coach of the Raiders. But
they're a train wreck.
The Lions seem to be everybody's favorite this year.
And I think Matt Patricia made the right move going back to the Patriots.
Yes, he did.
Even though he is a legitimate rocket scientist, the Lions did not go well for him. And, it's going to be interesting because they're coming in here Thursday Night Football, national stage, the biggest tailgate party in the history of the NFL is what they're promoting it as. And that is a big deal because unlike the Brown Stadium, where you can take the Rapid and walk to the stadium, you have to drive to Arrowhead, and it's got
you have no transportation to Arrowhead at all. You have no train going out there.
Nah, nah.
And I love Arrowhead and I love Kaufman, but I don't know what the story was when they first were built. And I remember driving by them decades ago when they were first going up, thinking how beautiful they were. But
Yeah.
don't they belong downtown?
The Royals are talking about moving
Yeah,
downtown.
Mr. Sherman.
It's
Yeah,
probably
the
going to
owner
be a
now.
vote on. Probably going to be a vote before opening day next year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and replicating kind of what the Guardians did. But I think it's going to be interesting because the Lions have some explosive offensive players. Jared Goff, the former Rams quarterback, he's got a Super Bowl appearance on his record. I mean, he's a legit quarterback. And if the Chiefs' defense looks the same way they did when what's going to be the starting defensive line was in the game against Derek Carr and against the Browns, that's not going to be good with Jared Goff. He can definitely make some impact on him, and it may be a case where the Chiefs go back and look a little bit more like those Dick Vermeil teams from the 2000s we were talking about, where they won by outscoring people because no Chris Jones, no defensive pressure. That's not good against a legit quarterback.
Well, we know that Mahomes can put points on the board. It's amazing too. Shows you the definition of a great quarterback, not just a good quarterback. Because that every year there's another receiver who
Yep.
leaves the Chiefs, and they just bring other guys in. Some of them you don't even know their names, and they get the job done. Plus, they have not really had a marquee running back for a few years, and they still keep managed to, all because of Mahomes. Want to hit you with this too? You have Mr. Goff pretty much run out of LA. He did not have a good Super Bowl game. There's no doubt about that. But it's just interesting that all of a sudden, in a team with less talent, the Lions, he shined brightly since he's been there.
Yeah. And it's definitely a quarterback carousel. Everything has to work out right. I was in Las Vegas last year watching the Raiders play, and I was going to go ahead and lay down a pretty good bet on the Raiders to win because they were playing the LA Rams with minimal, and they invested the few
who I wasn't that high on to start with, going from right tackle to left tackle. And he was having panic attacks. He couldn't sleep and had to go see a psychiatrist. It's like, wait a minute. You should be confident. You shouldn't be flipping out about changing positions. So I wish the young fella his best. And by the way, again, under the Haslam tenure, the best year they've had, only winning year they had was with Baker Mayfield as quarterback. And again, he was a whipping boy, was pretty much pushed out of town.
Coincidental. Well, hey, just to get a couple of picks in, and then we'll wind it down here.
Whatever you need, my friend.
Who do you think's going to win opening day? Are you going for the Browns or the Bengals?
You know what? Talking to people
Bengals coming to Cleveland.
Talking to people in the Browns organization, they wish the game was in Cincinnati. It's one of those things. Browns go down to Cincinnati, they win. Bengals come up here, they win. And by the way, look at the Browns' history in opening games. It is not good. Yeah,
No.
Joe Burrow and the Bengals, as much as I hate to say, although I like Joe, he's made me kind of like cast another eye towards my neighbors to the south. Because remember, the best parts of Cincinnati are in Kentucky, okay? Hands down.
The airport's there too.
But the Bengals come away with that victory opening day.
Okay, got the Bengals winning. And what do you think opening up the season? The Chiefs against the Lions.
Do you know what? Chiefs are home against the Lions. You know what? Lions are very
good in the rings.
This is just one that you can't go against Kansas City in Arrowhead. You can't go against Mahomes, and you can't go against the fans, especially if they're loaded out with Joe's or Masters Barbecue or Gates and Son. By the way, Gates and Son is my favorite in your great city.
Yeah, Joe's, Jack Stack, Gates, all pretty good. A lot of good stuff. Smokehouse. Any of them are available. There's sponsorship spots available. We could put their logo right there.
That's right. They should get involved here. Come on, man. Everybody watches it.
Broadcast on Roku. They can be on the FiredUp Network, available across the country and in Canada.
And plus they ship
So
anyway. So I got a
yeah,
shipment from Joe's a couple years
almost
ago.
in the spirit of old Cleveland sports talk, 38 states and half of Canada. Except I think Fired Up Network's available in the whole country of Canada and the whole United States. And hey, Munch, where can people find your work if they want to catch up a little bit on Cleveland sports
Okay.
too?
neosportsinsiders.com, neosportsinsiders.com, on Twitter at neosportsinside, Facebook at neosportsinsiders. Looking forward, brother. It's so good to hear
Excellent.
your
Yeah,
voices.
good to talk to you.
We've been shooting messages back and forth, but it's good
Yeah.
to see you and hear from you.
Well, then when the Steelers come up, we have a Steelers expert we can reach out to, the immortal Steeler Matt Lode.
Oh, you know what? Matt is no longer with us, my friends, unfortunately.
Oh,
Yeah, in fact, he started NEO Sports Insiders. One of the reasons I jumped on board is
okay.
that called home at a very, very early age. So,
Oh,
but
yeah, that's a
in
shame.
his memory, that's what we continue on.
Well, yeah. Well, we'll wish for a Steelers win in his
Whoa,
honor.
whoa, did I wait a minute? Hold on.
Not against the Browns, just
I have
against
water in
somebody.
my ears.
The Steelers. I like Mike Tomlin. They can win against
No,
somebody.
I like Tomlin too. He's a dang good coach.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, hey, Munch, we'll check back in throughout the season. If you have anything
Please
you want to
do.
share, by all means, hit me up here on Timeout and on the Fired Up Network.
I
Thanks a
appreciate you,
lot.
man. Take care of yourself,
Yep.
okay?
Bye. Hey, welcome back. I'm Gerald Bentley. This is Time Out, and we are joined by one of the fellow anchors on the Fired Up Network, Alex Campbell. You can see him on Ballin'. And then this week, the college football show kicks off. Alex, can you tell them a little bit about that?
Yeah, College Gridiron on the Fired Up Network. It's a show we're going to have a three-host network, and actually one of us is going to cover mostly the Big 12. His name's Jacob. One of us is going to cover mostly the SEC. His name's Bruce. And, of course, my name is Alex. I'm going to cover the Big 10. We're going to talk about all of it, basically every week, the top 25, all the conference races, any dark horses we see coming down the season, if we see any upsets. And we also do a weekly prediction. We'd actually been doing it a couple years. And just recently got put on the Fired Up Network for it. So I'm really excited about it.
Awesome. Yeah, it's great. And, it's going to be an interesting college football season because more and more, it really is just those three conferences. I mean, I'm here in Kansas City recording Timeout and, right in the heart of seeing the Pac-12 just explode and the Big 12, which was seemingly going to be gone a few years ago. There was talk that Kansas was going to leave, that K-State and Iowa State would be in the position that Stanford, Cal, Washington State, and Oregon are in now. Oregon State. And it's crazy.
I really think that the Big 12 specifically has done a great job scrambling to put together what will remain a respectable conference. I think it's relatively obvious that it's mostly an arms race between the Big 10 and the SEC. I mean, it just is. And
Interesting year in college football because there's so much change.
See where that puts the playoff this year too, because it'd be hard, I think, and I think as the season goes on, the bigger that point spread would grow. I do really like the Lions this year, but Andy Reid, Pat Mahomes, Kelsey, this is a system that's just, it works, and it's going to work for a long time because Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. He's the best quarterback in the world, and probably will be for at least a few more years.
Yeah, and it definitely covers up a lot of flaws. And you have to think, playing at a sellout, the Super Bowl banner getting unfurled,
Yeah.
Steve Spagnuolo is going to break out all the blitzes. You're
And
not going to see the defense you saw in the preseason that Derek
don't
Carr and
overlook
the
that.
Browns scored
Spagnuolo is
on.
going to make a huge difference there on that defense.
And I think a great pickup by the Chiefs, Drew Tranquil.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, get a pass rushing linebacker from the Chargers for essentially nothing.
Mm-hmm. How much do the Chiefs now look like the new Patriots? Because look at this, they're willing to go young and cheap on the defense as long as they're athletic and they can make a good deal. Or like Tranquil, they get a vet on a distressed asset that still has miles to go, like that. This is exactly what Belichick and the Patriots used to do, and because then you rely on having a dynamo at quarterback that you can pretty much do musical chair at receiver, running back, everywhere except pretty much one reliable tight end. And you got him in Kelsey,
Yeah.
and you got to make sure you protect him. So look how good they turned over that offensive line, and that offensive line is humming now. They're one of the best in the league, and they're young. So I mean, they're willing to spend money on the offense and protect him, and invest in that, and then just go cheap on the defense. And I think that's what you're going to see, for a while here with Mahomes reading the Chiefs.
Yeah, which is what I think this is coming down to with Chris Jones, is that he's asking for a 4-year guaranteed contract.
Yeah.
And right now, that's what's breaking it up, because the Chiefs aren't looking to throw a ton of guaranteed money out. And you made the good point. Where they have invested money this year, Orlando Brown Jr., similar deal to what they did with Chris Jones right now. They offered him a contract. He said no. It was a question last year if Orlando Brown Jr. was going to show up. He did show up.
He did.
And he turned down the long-term contract. He's gone. He's with the Bengals now. They went ahead and signed Jawan Taylor, so they massively upgraded right tackle. Get a healthy Donovan Smith over at left tackle. Now you've upgraded both of your tackles going into the year, because Donovan's a big upgrade over Orlando in pass blocking. And hey, not to spoil any game plans, that's what the Chiefs do mostly. They're not going to run first. They got Isaiah Pacheco, they got Jerick McKinnon, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire survives for another year. Those are your running backs, and they're gonna throw the ball. I mean, they're gonna pass to run. And Mahomes could run. So you're gonna see a very explosive offense, and it's a great point with the Patriots, because really, look at wide receiver. You've moved Tyreek Hill. You let Juju Smith-Schuster walk, ironically, to the Patriots, and you're running out there with MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Sky Moore in his second year, Justin Watson breaking training camp as your number 3 receiver.
Amazing.
And he's a man with a pair of Super Bowl rings, and he's won Super Bowl rings as a wide receiver for Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. Not bad coming out of the University of Pennsylvania.
Not bad at all. Not bad at all. Yeah, and it's really, I mean, it's amazing how similar it is when you get the greatest quarterback that you could possibly get, how it just changes things. And it looks just so similar, because you can rely on that cornerstone so heavily. It's just such an important position now that you can really just revolve the whole team around it, which is just a point that, like, I think seemed inevitable, but it still feels quick to get there.
Yeah, and that's why you're seeing, I think, teams take these gambles now on quarterbacks.
Yeah.
We just saw one implode this week, right before a roster cut down. Trey Lance traded for a 4th-round draft pick, a guy who actually accounted for 4 number 1 picks for the Niners. They traded 3 and used 1 for him, and he's gone after playing, I believe it was a record low number of games for a top 10 pick for a team. He only appeared in 4 games.
Yeah, 4 games, only 3 with anything longer than in like 3 minutes or so. Yeah, no, exactly. And for all accounts, he just really can't play at this level. He can't spin at this level. He doesn't have the ability to read defenses at this level. And really, because he didn't really play that much in college, and he played for a very small college. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, look, the NFL isn't the NBA, where like Kyrie Irving can sit out an entire year and get drafted number 1 overall and be fine. That's just not how it works. He's a big kid. He's athletic. He's probably not as athletic as everybody thought he was coming out of the draft. But he's got some upside, and I like that the Cowboys
it doesn't quite cancel it out, but would you trade 3 number 1 picks for a good starting quarterback?
Yeah,
Sure,
exactly.
sure you would,
And
and they got
think
one,
about
so
that.
it
They
covers it
got
up
one
some.
in the 7th round where the salary slot is so much lower. They're committed for 3 years to it, but it is so much lower than a top 3 pick. So they're paying less. They're paying less for Purdy than they would have for Lance.
The only complicating factor of it is now it makes decision time that much faster. I mean, they've really, if he has a good year, they really have to make that decision this offseason
Yeah, 100%, 100%. They
because
do.
you don't want to go to the walk here.
No, no, not at that point. Not when you got him
And
on
they can't,
some.
I believe they can't franchise him as a, no, they can,
They can't.
but they don't want to go to that.
There's no way. Yeah, there's no way they would I mean, he's undefeated so far. As long if he performs anywhere near to that standard, and I think he will.
Hmm.
Because I just if you look at his touchdown to interception ratio, it was one of the best all time for a rookie. Even in that stretch, I mean, there's a reason he did so well. He protected the ball. He's got a loaded offense, a great game plan, a brilliant head coach. I mean, all signs point up. And Darnold really cemented the whole thing for Trey Lance. I mean, you had to know when they acquired Darnold that Lance's days
Hmm.
were numbered.
Well, and with Brock Purdy, he really didn't get the credit he deserved coming out of college. I got to watch a lot of Iowa State football being here in
Sure.
Kansas City, and
Yeah.
he really played under a very conservative offense, was put into a game manager's role in a conference where most games end up in the 40s.
Hmm.
Iowa State won a lot of games in the 20s. It's not necessarily that he can't throw the ball, it's that they chose not to.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and against competition that in a lot of cases he was outclassed by, or at least in some. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
He always played the bigger schools really really tough. I mean, he really I think he even had a 12-win season in there
They did.
for Iowa State. Yeah. So I mean, he's not, and it was four years I believe there, right?
He did, yeah.
Yeah, 4-year starter. So I mean, he's got some experience. There's something to be said for that. Especially now that like we're in the age where the quarterback camps are kind of scripted, and there's a regiment to all this, and a nutritionist, and a game. You know what I mean,
Mhm.
and all that goes into it. That ramp up time really matters as long as you're not Stetson Bennett in 26 when you finally get in the league.
Now, hey, let me ask you about a couple other teams, and then we'll kind of wrap it up. Just hit a
Yeah,
couple of 2-minute warning questions for you.
sure.
What about the Colts? How do you think they're going to do? We just talked about Trey Lance. Now,
Yeah.
Anthony Richardson played at a much higher level. He played in the SEC at
Hmm.
Florida for the Gators, but by all the stats, any way you look at it, he wasn't good. And
Right.
he's going to be starting in the National Football League. What do you think that's going to happen?
Um, I I think they're trying to not completely wreck him while positioning themselves well in the next draft. Because and especially if you look at putting Taylor on the pup list, they're basically willing to pay him while he sits, and kind of continue that charade on. And that's what I meant. Like he's in so much of a better financial position than Chris Jones, because
Sure.
of how that front office dealt with that. And so and he was in a stronger negotiating position to begin with, but either way. So I think that he's likely going to struggle, but I think it's worth it. When you make that investment, you got to throw him out there and just and really see, because at the end of the day, he didn't play that. He's kind of like Trey Lance, like he only played 10 or 11 games at
Hmm.
Florida. He didn't have a lot of game reps experience under his belt. And so, but he did play against much stiffer competition than Lance did in that short time frame, obviously. In
Yeah.
the
And a
SEC.
dynamic athlete.
And he did battle well, even though the passing numbers themselves don't look good. He does have kind of that it factor where he's kind of a winner in a way, where he can will a team to a win, kind of a la Tim Tebow, sort of, just with his physicality. Because he's kind of like Josh Allen, that he's as much of a raw running athlete as he is a bulldozer. He's massive. I mean, when you saw kind of the pictures before the draft of all the quarterbacks, he just stood out. I mean, he's a different kind of specimen. So I think that'll bode well for him. I think in the modern NFL, that's pretty much what they're looking for. They got to find a way to turn him into mostly a pocket passer that can scramble instead of a guy that wants to scramble first, though.
It's a lot better for career longevity, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, there's basically everybody's trying to get hit less. So
Yeah, I mean the Ravens have tried. They've tried run first and hasn't worked out too well the last few playoff runs because Lamar's not healthy, and if
yeah,
he's not healthy, he's not going to be out there.
Yeah, yeah. You just can't really. I don't think you can really successfully do that as a game plan long term with a quarterback. I think the best example is like Russell Wilson and his longevity. Up until last year, he's really. I think he's got the third most rushing yards all time by a quarterback. And not never an offense that sought that run first by the quarterback. There was no read option play designs in Pete Carroll's offense. There was, you know, they weren't trying to specifically do a bunch of. I'm sure there were a few, but not a bunch of
Yeah.
quarterback draws. It wasn't like that. There was a bunch of rollouts where he made two reads, and if he saw an opportunity downfield, he tucked the deep rainbow pass. And you look at like Burrow and Mahomes, there's a lot of similarities there between the three of them. Although I think Mahomes is just superior almost in every category because he just is. It's like somebody took like all the greatest assets of a quarterback and mashed it into one player. It's pretty crazy just to watch it play sometimes.
Yeah, the fluidity is amazing.
Oh, it's just incredible. He makes, sidearm baseball passes. And I've seen that before out of quarterbacks, but not ones that are like this deep. I mean, you're talking like a 35-yard sidearm. You don't see that very often.
Yeah, and just amazing plays that you wouldn't even think would be possible.
Just,
And
yeah,
that is something that's unique to the Chiefs, and it's really been the difference maker. I mean,
yeah.
they question a lot. Hey, when Andy Reid came to Kansas City, well, hey, you'll like him. He'll win a lot in the regular season, but he can't win the big game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it may just be the key to winning the big game is having the quarterback that is that difference maker, that cheat code
Yeah.
that takes you from a loss to a win.
Yeah. So does that make the Chiefs the class of the AFC for you?
I think so. I think so until they're proven that they aren't, right?
Right.
To be
Right.
the man, you got to beat the man.
I
And,
think so too. Yeah.
as long as they have the Chiefs have the championship belt, you got to, I think, say they're still the champions, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Until you knock him off the hill. No, 100%. I do think, look out for Jacksonville. I really think Trevor Lawrence and Jacksonville have the opportunity with especially with Ridley getting back on the field. I mean, he did well with a no-name receiving core. I mean, now let's see what he can do. And I wouldn't be surprised if Jacksonville ended up being the number one seed in the AFC over the Chiefs, honestly, because their schedule is just a lot easier than the Chiefs, frankly. And I think they'll be favored to win even more of their games than the Chiefs will ultimately down the stretch. And
They have a lot of tie-ins. You got Doug Peterson down there coaching,
yeah,
right
yeah,
out of the Andy Reid coaching tree, former offensive coordinator here in Kansas City.
correct. So, yeah, and a very similar, and I think a very similar quarterback. I just pretty much put Lawrence, Burrow, and Mahomes like in a different category at this point than everybody else.
And you're knocking Josh Allen down a peg?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I've seen kind of, to me he looks like and plays like a meld of like Big Ben and Cam. He's about that size. And I just think that at some point we're gonna hit a wall. And I don't like his career longevity because ultimately he's really talented, got a cannon of an arm, but he's not quite as accurate as those other guys, and he's helped that accuracy. I mean, he's solved it to an extent, but it's never going to be what Burrow has. He entered the league ahead in that category. So it's going to be hard to catch. And I think the running's going to slow down here. He's going to hit a wall like those other guys I mentioned did, and be able to move less. And then we'll kind of see how it goes. But he's got a defensive head coach that's going to be hard to get rid of. And I think if you want to have long-term success in the NFL, you got to have an offensive, minded head coach, or one that'll at least be willing to leave the offensive loan and pay the offensive coordinator so he doesn't leave.
You know what? If I had any say, which obviously I don't, but if I had any say in hiring a head coach in the NFL, I wouldn't even interview a defensive coordinator.
Wouldn't do it. Wouldn't do it. No, not at all.
Or honestly, at a major college.
Yeah.
Because defense, if you can get a couple of turnovers, you can get a couple of stops, it's almost becoming the NBA-ization of the NFL.
Yeah.
Because if
Basketball
you're
on
going to
grass.
try to win, and really Vrabel's the last one who's been successful, and he hasn't achieved the ultimate success.
Right.
Because if you're going to play and you're going to try to play 21-17, 17-14, you're leaving yourself in a position every game where one play beats you.
Yeah,
And
there's
I
no
got to
margin
watch
for
that for
error.
years with Marty Schottenheimer. The Chiefs had the best offensive line. They had a dynamic defense, and they had good offensive players. Not
Yeah,
great, but
yeah,
Evan Gerbach was okay. Rich Gannon won an MVP elsewhere,
yeah.
but they were always just in the position to lose, and they lost just a few too many times.
Had Joe
Never hit that
Montana for a
ultimate
minute
goal.
there.
Yeah, Joe Montana.
Right.
That may have been the year they won, but Joe Montana got hurt, and that was
Yeah,
it.
that was
Well, hey,
it.
let me ask you. We'll go to the 2-minute warning. Just a couple
Sure.
of quick questions. I know we're going to be talking a lot of college football. Who is the best player in college football this year? Is it Caleb or is it Marvin Harrison Jr.?
I think it's still Caleb Williams. He fits that modern NFL prototype we were just talking about so well, where he makes good decisions looking downfield and passing downfield, but then has the opportunity to get out of the pocket and scramble. And he's not a scramble first guy. And he looks, he plays in really an NFL caliber offense already with Lincoln Riley. I think Riley's destined to be one of those guys we were talking about and probably be an offensive minded head coach in the NFL someday.
Absolutely. And who knows? Caleb Williams is going to go to whoever. I do believe Chris Jones will show up because if he waits to week 8 to show up, as he said, well, the problem is he's going to lose over 10 million in salary this year,
Yeah.
and he's lowering the bar for the franchise tag that the Chiefs will inevitably slap on him. So that means he's going to cut his franchise money by almost 10 million next year. He's supposedly holding out for 20 million more upfront cash. Well, you're losing it right now.
Yep.
You may as well show up. Let's
Remember
go.
the Chiefs to Patriots comparison. Well, meet Vince Wilfork.
True.
You're in over your skis on this negotiation. You're going to lose because they have something to lean back on.
There's
that's
no
why.
good end because they'll slap the franchise tag on you, and then you can enjoy playing for whoever gives the Chiefs 2 number 1 picks for you, and
and you're
Chiefs will move on.
On top of it, you're making yourself look like a worse employee for your next employer. You know what I mean? So by acting like this about the contract that you already agreed to, so I think it's a bad look all around, and specifically because it's not a great financial decision at the same time. Like I kind of thought that's why like it was kind of odd that Lamar Jackson didn't get any kind of interest from another team back when he was chopping himself around with his family and friends, and I think that's why, because like ultimately you can't make an amateur decision here. It doesn't work like that. You have millions and millions of dollars on the line. You need like, if it were me, if it were you, we'd have like a team of attorneys working on this, and so, I would need like the advice of a panel of people before I made any call.
Personally, as soon as somebody told me, hey, you know what, we did the numbers and you want to wait till week 8 to come back. Okay, well, that's 12 million gone. And then that lowers your guaranteed pay next year by 10 million. So you're giving up 22 million by choice, and we're holding out for them to give us an extra 20. We should say yes.
You should probably say yes.
It wouldn't have been that hard.
Yeah, you should probably say yes.
Yeah, I think we say yes. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and the good news is for fans of college football and the Fired Up Network, you have reached your contract negotiations. You're not holding out for that additional 20 million upfront money. So coming up this weekend, when can people tune in to catch up on college football?
So we'll be on the Fired Up Network on Friday. And hopefully we'll make it on the primetime show on Thursday next week. But we're recording on Thursday. Really excited about it before all the games kick off. So we'll cover the Thursday games, the Friday games, and the Saturday games. Talk all of it. Give our divisional predictions, and I'm just really, really excited for week 1, man. So excited. College football is really, my favorite. So
yeah, awesome. It's glad that football's back. It seems like it's been a long time. It's the same length of time every year, but it seems like it's been a long time. Hey, Alex, thanks for joining us here before the season kicks off. We'll touch base with you throughout the year and catch you on the Fired Up Network.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks.